The US dollar continues to crash lower today, and in this video I'm going to tell you everything that I know and everything that I think you should probably be aware of if you're trading USD pairs, and we're going to talk about some trading setups that could be good going into the rest of this week and maybe even into next week. Stay tuned. So a lot of you guys know this guy right here. I guess it's this way. This guy right here, Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell has a lot of power. He is the Fed's chairman, and he has a lot of say and a lot of influence in terms of the Fed's monetary policy, which, by the way, you guys, he just went in front of Congress recently. And the reason that we're seeing so much dollar pressure to the downside now is because Jerome Powell basically had a little bit of hesitation when Congress was pampering him with questions. I watched some of the live stream on YouTube, and basically it seemed like Congress had all these concerns around inflation, and Jerome Powell was kind of dodging a little bit. He was a little bit hesitant to kind of shut down the inflation conversation, and then following that, with the CPI numbers coming out very high recently, we saw a big flush to the downside as inflation spikes went up and confidence in the Fed's strength to kind of cut spending and go for monetary policy tightening in the form of rate hikes, things like that, was a little bit wavering in Congress a few days ago. So when you put all that together, it is definitely a little bit of a concern for the US dollar in the short term in terms of fundamentals. But in this video, what I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at the charts together, and we're going to talk about some setups. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at DXY. This is the US dollar currency index, and you can see we're looking at a daily chart, and you can see it even better on the 4-hour chart. This sell-off continues today. We made a huge breakout, which we talked about in yesterday's video here on the daily chart. This level in particular being this kind of strength or stronghold for the bulls, which now with that huge red candle to the downside completely broke out of that, and now showing a lot of resistance at that same area. So when we look at this, where is the dollar headed, and where are the trade setups that we could potentially take? There's a couple pairs that I want to look at. We're going to take a look at gold, we're going to look at the euro, and we're going to look at the pound here in this video, so stay tuned. You'll be able to see each one. Now, the thing I want to say with the dollar index breaking out like this is I did not buy anything yesterday. Even though you guys who have been watching my streams and my videos regularly, you know I'm pretty bullish on the dollar. I didn't want to buy anything yesterday, and I'm kind of glad that I did because the volatility to me just looked like it could continue lower. And as we mentioned in yesterday's video, a very natural place, in my opinion, for where price could go next is a return back to a key spot of demand, which I marked out as 94.4. We're still on the way down there. We have not quite gotten there, so I'm not piling into a bunch of long positions on the dollar at this time, but I do still like the idea of potentially buying into the dollar on a pullback once we get some push down there and maybe some volatility, maybe some confirmation, maybe some nice candlestick patterns could form, and there may be some opportunities to look for dollar longs. Now, I won't be trading the DXY, so what we should do now is we'll take a look at some individual pairs that we actually could take a trade on. So let's flip everything around, make it confusing for a second. We'll talk about euro dollar first. Euro dollar, if you remember, just looked at the DXY, it was headed up and then it pulled back. The euro dollar oftentimes looks kind of inverse to that because, of course, you are trading the euro against the dollar and saying, well, the euro's weakening against a strengthening dollar. But recently, with the dollar dropping like crazy, we have this kind of action going on where we've seen some nice higher lows. You can see all my broker orders. I've been trading this thing to the short side quite a bit on Oanda, but I fortunately was able to get out of there. I took some profits off of this move on a shorter term swing trade, and then I'm glad that I did, because man, this thing is not stopping right now. So we'll take a look at the first. I want to mark this level. So this is kind of my next area, similar to the DXY. I'm trying to sit on my hands a little bit here and wait this one out, because I do think that if I'm going to short the euro dollar, I need a good pullback. I need to see the bulls take a turn here. I don't want to just try and jump right in front of bulls as they're getting started. I kind of want to let them run for a little bit, let them have the ball for a little bit, and then try and take it and run it back to, score a touchdown, right? That's the idea. So sorry for the people who are not in the US, football enough to know what a touchdown is, I'm sure. Right? But anyways, the idea being here with euro dollar, we look at the higher time frames and we talk about, getting that proper pullback, giving it the chance, giving the bulls the chance. I love this level here. That 50% level, you can see marks out real nicely. You've got a downward trend overall. And for me, should we see a pullback up to that level, that's where I'm starting to pick up some short positions. If we can get up into 1.155, I will probably look to take a small short on the euro dollar. Of course, probably looking for some confirmation, some sign of, okay, well, we could weaken here and continue lower. I'm not a big fan of the euro in general, so I do actually like the idea of shorting this pair against the dollar, right? Or shorting the euro against the dollar, because Europe, in terms of monetary policy, is kind of lagging from the US in my view, and probably in most analysts' view, right? You have a lot of people who are kind of bearish on the euro because their monetary policy, they're starting to see a little bit of up in inflation, which could cause the ECB to start making moves towards rate hikes of their own at some point. But it just seems right now the forecasts seem to be a lot more slower, a lot more dovish in terms of the ECB than the Fed's hawkish outlook, which is, like I said, to be fair to this video, has been challenged a little bit here recently. So anyways, that 50% level is a level that I am looking for. If that comes into play later on today or next week, I will probably be looking at that for a potential short. Next up, we'll take a look at pound dollar here. And for those of you guys who are trading gold, I can hear you skipping around on the video. Give me a second. We'll get to gold. Don't you worry. Let's warm up first. We're going to warm up and then we'll talk about gold together.
Keep still.
Here's the pound dollar. And I'm very, very glad that I did not short this thing, because there was so I talked about this in a recent video. You guys can go back and watch the video if you'd like, but I talked about, there's a GBP pair video that I focused very heavily on pound dollar and pound yen on, and I pointed out that there was some very cookie cutter looking short opportunities on the pound pairs, right? Talking about, something like this, where you had this downward trend and price pulling back, and it looked like a 61.8% retracement could be a beautiful short, right? We talked about this, and I literally, I'm gonna pat myself on the back here. I really did say that I think that this looked like a kind of a trap, right? Because it looked so clean, yet when we looked at retail sentiment, all the retail traders were shorting the pound here. They were all going short, right? And so now, as we've broken out of that level, it does look like the pound strength wants to continue. And so if you are bullish on the pound or even bearish on the dollar short term, this pair may be one that you keep an eye on, because now it does look like not only have we kind of broken out of that downward structure, but there may be some opportunities for new trends emerging here on the pound. We are looking at the daily chart, so mind you, this is a little bit higher time frame, but let's say in the next week or two you start to see a pullback on the pound. Maybe there's some opportunities to look to get long off of a retest of supportive structure. What was so strong for the bulls for the bears as resistance, now we've kind of got a mark as potential support, right? You've got these levels here in mind that could be good opportunities to look for discount pullback buys and continuing this pound rally that we've seen. Now, the pound is very, very strong off of their sudden rate hikes that they came out with. As soon as that sort of happened, I switched my perspective on the pound to kind of bullish, because again, fundamentals are very key. Everyone looks at the charts, everyone looks at technicals. That's the very popular place to sort of trade based on, but fundamentals are a lot of work, and they're a lot more difficult in my opinion than technicals. So, this is years in the making of my learning process on fundamentals, and I still have more to learn. We all do, right? But the idea being, if fundamentally you get a major shift like that, sometimes the technicals just can serve as traps, and that's exactly what we saw. We saw that big trap, which did in fact break out there as buyers came running in there off of that fundamental catalyst. So next up, we'll take a look at gold. Here is your gold chart for those of you guys who trade it. We are seeing a pretty impressive move for gold right now. We take a look at the 4-hour chart, and you can kind of see that we've had a pretty impressive run to the upside here. Now, same thing that we talked about yesterday with gold. Watch for the breakout, because we are now entering into potential breakout territory dependent on whether or not this dollar story continues to be bearish in the short term. So check this out. If we see a dollar drop to the downside even further, remember that when we look at currency pairs or pairs in general, right, when we look at something like XAUUSD and we say, well, the dollar is dropping dramatically, if that is set to continue, we could potentially see gold, as we have already seen, right, gain a little bit of wind in their sail, right? So we're seeing gold do well because of the dollar fear, right? As people are kind of uncertain about Jerome Powell's speech in Congress and everything kind of going on, you have dollar strength kind of pulling back and really diminishing, and then you're seeing the uprising of gold right now. And we're kind of at a quintessential spot today as we make this video, because we are sitting at a very key spot of resistance. We've already sort of rejected a little bit. Now the question is, can we get the breakout? And here's where I think you could get some great, if you are a bull on gold, I think that there are some potentially nice risk to reward trades. If this dollar thesis, if this dollar, sell-off continues for a little while, then you may have the opportunity to look for some good risk reward trades on gold. So for example, we go here, right? We marked this yesterday, very similar stuff to what we did yesterday if you watch yesterday's video, but now we're just kind of making updates on it. This concept, right? 1830, if we can break out of that level, you get something like this, big break to the upside, pull back opportunities, and maybe a nice risk reward playing it back up to 1865, 1870, something like that, where we previously topped out and found sellers. So, there's a nice risk reward there. I mean, that is a 3-to-1 reward ratio. So you're talking about good risk reward if you like that, if you have a good reason. Now, I'm not saying to go buy this right here at this level. What I'm saying is probably I would be looking at this and saying, okay, if we get a break outside of this range, right? If we nullify this resistance, which has been very strong to the credit of the bears, if we see the breakout above that level, we're able to hold it for a day or so, and then we start to see any give back, any pullbacks, there's a swing trade opportunity that could take, 2 weeks, but if it nets you a major profit in terms of pips and percentages, that's what it's all about here, right? We're focused on reward, but more important than reward, we're focused on risk. And in this case, I think that if gold has some short-term momentum that it wants to break out of this, we'll have to see the candle. If we get that big green candle and we start to see the breakout, there may be some follow-through action that could make sense, especially if the dollar slips even further past where we currently sit. Now, again, when we look at the dollar one more time, the thing that I wanted to point out today is that we are kind of in free fall from this zone. As soon as we broke out of 95.6, as soon as we closed outside of that, the flush just continued, because look at this, there is kind of no major strength or major support levels until we get down to that 94.5, 94.4 zone, right? So that's kind of why I think that for short term, even though I am bullish on the dollar, I still like the idea of picking some up. I think that there may be some opportunities just to wait a little bit longer and potentially pick up some dollar trades at a short position in the lower, if the dollar continues to push lower. And again, my favorite setups right now being things like euro dollar, and one more bonus pair we'll take a look at together, you guys, is dollar yen. So you can see I stopped out of my dollar yen trade. I took a loss here on this pair after trying to buy the retest of this last year's high. I was unable to catch any profit there, so ended up actually taking a stop loss. So price broke out, big clean entry, and this just happens sometimes. Markets do weird things where they get a beautiful entry opportunity. This was cookie cutter. I've had this sort of trade set up for me several dozens of times, hundreds of times even, and it is one of my most profitable styles of trading, right? Momentum, fundamental catalyst, pullback to previous resistance, buy the support level, and trail stops. Sometimes it works amazing. Other times the markets just don't have that in mind for you. So we actually ended up dropping, and I was stopped out of my position. But that's okay, because I do think that there may be some opportunities to pick up some dollar yen. And I do want to say this, if we get some serious pullback on the dollar, like if we see some, the next 2 weeks of selling on the dollar, and we're able to get down to levels like 113, I will probably actually look for some opportunities down in those levels, right? That's some deeper retracements. That's talking daily chart pullbacks, big time. So for the time being, it just doesn't seem like there are bulls in the market. We're looking at the 4-hour chart, we're looking at the 1-hour chart, and we're just not seeing a lot of strength come in. Here's the 1-hour chart, and you can see a breakout here today on the 1-hour view on dollar yen. We'll see if that continues to flush to the downside, but either way, the bears have already made a substantial gain to the downside on the dollar yen and some of the other pairs that we looked at today. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and with that said, we'll see you next time. What's up, guys? Thanks for watching today's video. There are more videos available on our channel here and here, so go ahead and click into that for some more free trading content. With that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you back next time.